Hey, what's up everybody? It's Austin here with Dreamcatcher Guides. Just getting done a guide trip on Lake Burton, dropped the people back off at their dock and wanted to do an equipment video for you guys and talk about really my favorite setup for glide baits and big baiting. It's springtime, right? And without question, one of the biggest assets that we use on guide trips, when I'm out fun fishing, trying to find fish up shallow, trying to find big ones, trying to catch big ones, is a glide bait. My favorite glide bait, without question, is an ABT. I like the homicide glides and the suicide glides. I believe this is the homicide. It's got the nose hook. I actually keep it free, and people always ask me, you know, does it booger up your line? And no, it doesn't. I put a split, not a split ring, a snap swivel or snap on there, so it doesn't booger up my line, and it very rarely does it ever wrap around it, just because the weight of it. It usually hangs low, and it's great because when the fish headshot it, the hook swings right into their mouth. And I like the T-bone hook and then the tail hook. Catch a lot of fish on this bait, but I like it in the 9-inch too. I've got the 9-inch tied on, and I do the same thing with that. But anyways, I want to talk about this whole setup because how we swim bait fish is super unique. You know, I always tell people big fish live where you think they live. They just see a shaky head and a little jig and whatever the heck else. Don't get me wrong, those things catch big fish, but these things are made for it. But anyways, my setup with this thing, I'm using 20-pound tactical P-line. I love tactical P-line. Telling you, the stuff is so strong. I told a fellow the other day in the store, if he was going down the highway and I set the hook on the bumper of his truck, it'd probably pull the bumper off, or his truck would just come to a emergency brake stop. But 20-pound tactical P-line. I boat flip a lot of big fish with this, have absolutely no problem handling big fish. I change out all the hooks on my ABT to Gamakatsu. It's a size 1 up front, a 1/0 on the T-bone, and then actually a size 2 in the back, which is kind of annoying because they're all different sizes, but those are just the best hooks. It swims the best with those weighted sizes. It's a EWG short shank Gamakatsus, and it's a 1/0 and a 2 in the back. But the rod I'm throwing it on is a really, really good rod. This is the best swim bait rod I've ever thrown, and I have thrown a ton of them. This is the Daiwa Tatula Elite swim bait rod. It's the Monroe series. It's a great, great rod. It's an 8-foot. It's a heavy, and it's rated for up to 10 ounces, between 3 and 10 ounce lures. And this just absolutely gets it done. What's really unique about this rod is it's stiff enough where if I'm throwing a Huddleston or a big single hook bait, it's got enough just sheer tip and backbone to really keep them pinned. But what I love about this rod is it really, really bends. It's a regular bend. It's a regular bend rod, so it's kind of like a moderate action. It bends all the way down into the midsection of the rod, and even slightly bends down into the handle. And what happens is when these big bass are eating this glide bait, that moderate action, that regular bend on these rods allows for those fish, when they're head shaking, that rod is going to absorb the head shakes. No different than a cranking rod. You know, I always tell people you want a moderate action rod on a cranking rod, because when those fish go to head thrashing, they go to head shaking with a big heavy glide bait in their mouth. You want something that's going to be able to absorb their head shakes and keep them pinned. So this rod, it's light, it's sensitive. If you like silver, it's definitely stylish. I'm not much on aesthetics. I don't really care what a rod looks like as long as it does the job well. That's really all I care about. But my reel of choice is going to be a Daiwa Tatula 150 or a Daiwa Tatula 200. You get a lot of guys, they like the huge 300, 400 size reels. They like big old round reels. Here's the deal. These Daiwas are all metal interior gearing. They're extremely manageable. They handle these baits great. They've got a big drag capacity. They've got a power handle on them, which is something that I think is super unique. And as far as gear ratio goes, I like a 7.1 or 7.3 to 1 gear ratio. And you may think that's kind of fast. And, you know, I just really like when I hook a fish, I can get them in the boat. I always tell people, you know, people on guide trips are like, I like playing fish. And I'm like, well, I like playing with them when they're in my live well. but or just getting my hands on things. But I'm not one to play fish. I really like to winch them in, and I prefer a fast gear ratio. Even when I'm throwing a hood, I would rather, this is kind of my thinking behind it, is I would rather reel a bait a little slower on the retrieve and then just have a normal, like once they eat it, man, I'm in control of that fish. If I've got a slow gear ratio, and I'm having to like freak out, man, that's just like a recipe for disaster. I'd rather be disciplined enough to throw a 7.3 a little slower on the front end, and when I hook them, just a good pace getting them in the boat. I don't want to be freaking out and making my whole rod go crazy. Nope, I'd rather just be disciplined with slow retrieve on the front end and then just normal retrieve getting the big fish in on the back end. But the setup is super great. I throw it with my 8 and 10 inch triple trouts. I throw it on my Depths 250. I throw it on my big ABT baits, my small ABT baits. You can even get away, it's a little big for a Depths 175, but I think it's all right just because I like using that big rod when I'm handling big fish. So another one of the swim bait rods I really like is this is the DXSB, the Daiwa DXSB. This is $100 price point. I've got it right here on the Tatula HD, the heavy duty. They discontinued it, but check this out. They put all that technology into the Tatula 150 and 200s, really the 200 with the spool capacity, power handle and everything. But this is a great rod, regular bend rod. It's got a stiff tip, so it's super stout. You know, when I'm fishing a HUD, I've caught a lot of big fish on this rod too. And at a $100 price point, you can't beat it. It's got that stiff tip, but it's got that regular bend. It bends down into the handle, which is so key when you're messing around with big fish. And you know, as far as bouncing them go or boat flipping them, both the Elite Tatula rod, swim bait rod, and this booger here are absolute beast mode. I've never had a rod break. I've never had a problem with them. You know, they absolutely handle big fish, and that's what I need them for. When I'm guiding, when I'm out here trying to take people out, you know, they want to catch their biggest bass ever, I need equipment that's not going to fail. All metal interior gearing, the T-wing, power handle. Man, these rods and reels are absolutely awesome. I love Daiwa product. Give them a try. This is without question the #1 setup in the game. So we catch a lot of big fish on them. Man, they rock. So anyways, give these a try for sure. Call us 828-354-0250. You can also visit us. Our address is 21 Steeple Rd, Sylva, North Carolina 28779. But this rod right here, if you're looking to get into swim baiting, looking to take your swim baiting to the next level, this rod and reel setup right here will put giants in the boat. Give it a try. Check it out. See you guys.